The New York Islanders prepare for two critical games this weekend. We preview them both, and boy, we're going to learn a lot more about this team by the time it's over. We also have the latest injury updates on Scott Mayfield and Oliver Wahlstrom. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can also hear us now on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On Islanders. We have got a busy show today, lots to get to before this big weekend of games. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We will keep you up to date all season long on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so make sure you join me for instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you game time or anytime. So reach out on Twitter, and it's fun to talk Isles hockey. All right, we have got a lot to discuss on today's show. Let's get started with injury updates. Now, the Islanders right now practiced on Thursday in preparation for this weekend's games, starting with tonight against the New Jersey Devils, third straight home game for the Islanders to start the season. And I guess the question is going to become, who's going to be ready? So we have some updates regarding both Scott Mayfield and Oliver Wahlstrom. Mayfield missed practice again on Thursday, still listed officially as day-to-day with a lower body injury, has not been placed on injured reserve, but Lane Lambert letting the media know that he has not skated since last Saturday when he suffered an injury blocking a shot. It hit his left ankle. He has not been officially ruled out for tonight's game against the Devils, but I would have to say it is unlikely that he is going to play. And again, the Islanders have a back-to-back Friday night against the Devils at UBS Arena, Saturday night in Buffalo. I would say that Mayfield has a very low chance of playing in the Devils game and maybe only a slightly better chance of playing against the Buffalo Sabres on Saturday. But when you haven't skated yet, and it's been now, 4 or 5 days, you get to the point where it is unlikely that we see Scott Mayfield this weekend. Then Oliver Wahlstrom looks like he is getting closer to the point where he's going to be ready to play. Again, Lane Lambert addressing the media about Oliver Wahlstrom. He's just got to keep working. His opportunity will come, whether that's tomorrow, the next day, or whatever it might be. Everything is getting better and trending upward. So it looks like we will once again see Samuel Bolduc in this game tonight against the Devils, along with Sebastian Aho as the third pairing. And it'll be interesting to see, number one, can that duo, which did perform very nicely against the Arizona Coyotes earlier this week, can they come out and continue to play the steady shutdown defense that they played, number one. And then number two is, when do we see Scott Mayfield back? I get the feeling they will be conservative with Mayfield. Don't need to rush him. We're very early on in the season, and it just, I think, makes more sense to be cautious. Now, as for Wahlstrom, he seems to be a lot closer to returning. And I think the question then becomes, with Wahlstrom being close, where do you put him in the lineup? And then who sits if Wally is available? My preference would be that Wahlstrom should replace Holmstrom in the lineup. I think Simon Holmstrom just doesn't add enough offensive juice to that first line. I mean, he hasn't been bad. I'm not saying that he was inadequate in any way, but over the long haul, and again, we've had a rather small sample size so far this year, but I don't see Simon Holmstrom being the guy who can really give this team a lot of, offense on the first line. And look, through 2 games, he's had 1 hit. He hasn't blocked a shot, and he has a grand total of 1 shot on goal. And, again, I'm not looking for 30 goals and 80 points from Simon Holmstrom at this stage in his career. What he has the potential to develop into remains to be seen. But at this stage in his career, I would tend to think of Holmstrom ideally, if he's going to stay in the NHL, is going to be more of a third line kind of a guy who is responsible defensively and isn't going to hurt you on the ice and can help slow down the opposing team's faster and more dangerous offensive players. But he's not going to add a lot of offense. To me, I would rather have Oliver Wahlstrom up there on the top line with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal than Simon Holmstrom. But again, you don't want to rush it. So you have a back-to-back this weekend. I would say it is more realistic that we see Wahlstrom in one of those 2 games, more likely Saturday's game against the Buffalo Sabres, only because that gives him a little bit more time to recover, and it really, gives the team a little bit of a break with the back-to-back, that they would have one player at least who is fresh and ready to go. So we'll see what Lane Lambert does. And again, a lot of it may very well depend on how much progress Wahlstrom continues to make. And, the other thing is this: Wahlstrom probably will be limited in his minutes in his first game back. I'm not saying that he will only play 5 or 6 minutes, but I don't think we're seeing him play 20 minutes plus either. And he may very well, split time on the first line, or maybe even have him on the third line. And, I hate to say this because I still, again, as everydayers know, don't want to see Anders Lee on a line with Bo Horvat, but to temporarily move Lee up, or you might want to move Hudson Fasching up temporarily for part of the game if Wahlstrom is indeed in the lineup instead of Holmstrom. But one step at a time, let's let Wally get back into a game first, and then we can worry about exactly where he'd fit. Wahlstrom could also fit, as I said, on the third line. I don't expect him to see a lot of power play time just yet. But again, one step at a time, we'll see how the Islanders handle this and when Wally is actually ready to play. But it's encouraging to think that he may be back in the lineup. And, if you go back to a year ago, for example, there were some players out there on the ice for the Islanders who, did not last who played in the first few games. I mean, Robin Salo, for example, was in the lineup for the first handful of games during last season and then more or less disappeared after that, except for a brief stint due to injuries. So, how this all plays out remains to be seen, but hopefully Oliver Wahlstrom will be able to get into the lineup and claim a regular spot somewhere. All right, we have got a lot more to get to on today's show, and we have two important games coming up this weekend. The Islanders are off to a great 2-0 start, but we'll know a lot more about the team after these next two games. We'll preview them both. We've got that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared. There's unrest in the Middle East, fires in Hawaii, hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida, earthquakes, and more. These can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. Well, the solution is the Jase case. It's a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. And now you can also customize your Jase case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase is continually working to expand their medication offerings, and that is always an important thing. And look, now you can get gift cards for your family or loved ones so they can get a Jase case of their own. Go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you that truly sculpted look. They do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but Birddogs fit way better. And they fit better than regular shorts because regular shorts are made of a stiff, restricting cotton that it just, does not fit exactly well. But Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. So, two big games this weekend for the New York Islanders. Tonight, the New Jersey Devils, and then in Buffalo Saturday night for the first road game of the season. And, one thing, Semyon Varlamov is going to start one of these two games. And I'm interested in seeing what Lane Lambert decides to do. I personally would start Varley Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres. On the one hand, you haven't gotten him into a game yet. And that Sorokin has already played 2 games, but the Islanders haven't played since Tuesday. And they've had a couple of days off, so I don't think Sorokin will be tired. And to me, it's more important, if you're going to win one of these 2 games, to beat the New Jersey Devils. Why? It's a division rival, and the Devils are also kind of off to a bit of a slow start. They are struggling a little bit early in the season, and I think you want to take advantage. Right now, the Devils 1-1-1 through 3 games, but realistically, they are going to look to get back into it. You want to hit them when they're down and possibly find a way to win. Last game, the Devils played, they ended up losing by a score of 4-3 to the Florida Panthers. And in that game, Vitek Vanacek was in goal. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go with Vanacek or Akira Schmid. We'll see what happens. Again, early in the season, the Devils' power play, however, is clicking. They're converting at a 31.3% rate. Their penalty kill is struggling so far. They're ranked 27th in the league, giving up a goal in every 3 power plays that they face. But again, very early in the season, Jack Hughes off to a very fast start. He leads the team with 6 points through 3 games. Jesper Bratt right behind him with 5. And the ever-dangerous Dougie Hamilton has 4 points. This is a Devils team, and the Islanders beat them 2 out of 3 last year. But here is a young, fast, skilled team. Their biggest question may be the goaltending duo of Schmid and Vanacek. They're both good, but neither is, in my mind, spectacular. So it'll be interesting to see if the Islanders can take advantage of the defense and goaltending of the Devils. You look at the line combinations, the top line is very, very dangerous. And realistically, their top 6 is extremely dangerous. Top line, Jack Hughes centering Tyler Toffoli and Jesper Bratt. Nico Hischier centers the second line with Timo Meier and Andre Palat on either side of him. That would be the Islanders' first line, I think, if those 3 guys were all immediately traded to the Islanders. Eric Walla centers Dawson Mercer and Alexander Holtz on the third line. And then the fourth line, Michael McLeod is the pivot. Curtis Lazard to his left, Nathan Bastian to his right. Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton are the top defensive pair. Kevin Ball and John Marino the second, and then Brendan Smith and Luke Hughes are the third pairing. As we mentioned, the goalies, Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid. And again, to me, the biggest key for this game, do not let the New Jersey Devils come through the neutral zone with speed. This is a team that has a lot of guys who can beat you if you give them time or space. And, you look at Dougie Hamilton, you look at Luke Hughes, they can carry the puck from the blue line. Jack Hughes, Tyler Toffoli, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier. These are guys who can beat you if you give them any time or space. So, number one, let's stay out of the penalty box. Do not give them a lot of chances to put pucks in the net with extra time and space. And then do not give them the opportunity to build up speed and come into the Islander zone with the Islanders back on their heels. That is something that would definitely be detrimental to the Islanders' chances. Now, Saturday, the Islanders have their first road game against the Buffalo Sabres, and we're going to see what happens with Buffalo. I mean, Devon Levy has started every game for the Sabres thus far, 4 games in a row. Now, here's the thing. The Sabres, they're playing Thursday night. They will have a day off while the Islanders will be playing a back-to-back, and the Islanders have to travel to Buffalo. The Sabres playing the Flames Thursday night in Buffalo. And again, Levy starting that game. So maybe we see the backup goalie. And Buffalo, it's kind of been surprising that offensively, they've been struggling a little bit. In their first 3 games, a total of 6 goals. Not the top offensive output you expect. Their goals against have been more than respectful. And Levy, who is young, and this is probably, his first full season in the NHL, I think he looks like their goalie of the future, looks pretty darn good. The Islanders saw him in the season opener, but I think we may very well see their backup goalie in the game on Saturday. But right now, Buffalo off to a 1-2 start, and pending the outcome of their game against the Calgary Flames. The line combinations take Thompson, Jeff Skinner, and Alex Tuck. The top line, Dylan Cousins, Jason Paterka, and Peyton Krebs of the second line. Casey Middlestat, centers Jordan Greenway and Zach Benson on the third line, and Tyson Jost, Zemgus Girgensons, and Kyle Oposo are the fourth line. Rasmus Dahlin and Matthias Samuelsson, the top pairing on defense. Owen Power and Henri Jokiharju are the second pairing, and then Eric Johnson and Connor Clifton the third. The goalies, we mentioned Levy, and then Eric Comrie would be the goalie if they decide not to play Levy against the Islanders. Again, we saw Buffalo. We know what they can do. They're not off to the best start offensively, which is a little bit surprising because they are more of an offensive team, at least on paper, than a defensive-minded team. But the Islanders, again, need to do what they did in their first two games, and that's play strong, steady defense in order to get the win. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. We will have our Islanders birthday of the day, and we're talking about a player from the late 80s and early 90s, a forward who really was more of a defensive bottom six kind of a forward. Let's see if you can guess who that is. And then, of course, we're going to answer one of your questions about J.G. Pageau. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Well, Matthew Barzal scores a hat trick. The Islanders win the Stanley Cup. And if you want to win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. These are all possible scenarios for this season, but to have a chance at winning big, you need to play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. As the official daily fantasy app of Locked On NHL Network, Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. So with studs like Bo Horvat or Connor McDavid, Alexander Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Cale Makar, all you need to do is pick more or less on stats for these stars. Choose stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. You heard me, Islander fans. 100-time payouts on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So we have a question, email from Jack in New Jersey. And here's what he asks. I love Pageau as a fan, but is he still good enough to help this team to success moving forward? If so, why? If not, who should we go for in a potential trade? Well, Jack, first of all, thank you very much for the question. And I think the answer with Pageau is, yeah, I think he still can help this team. Yeah, he doesn't have any points in the first couple of games. He's a -1. But here's what Pageau does so well. He is decent offensively. He'll get you 15 to 20, maybe on a great year, 25 goals. But on the Islanders, let's say 15 to 20. He is a very good defensive forward. He can kill penalties. He is smart with the puck, sound defensively. His line can help slow down the opposition's top line. And he is just off to an amazing start in the faceoff circle. And it's not just this year. He has been one of the better faceoff guys in this league for a few years. He has taken 26 faceoffs in the first two games of this season and won 21 of them. So, look, if you're just looking at the box score and, the back of his hockey card and you want to say, oh, yeah, J.G. Pageau, 15 goals, 38 points or 42 points or whatever it's going to be, he's not that valuable a player. Remember what his role is. He's the third line center. He is your checking center, but a two-way checking center. And I think Pageau still fills that role extremely well, does all the little things right. I guess the big question long-term with Pageau is, where does he fit in economically? He still has this year and 2 more years on his contract at $5 million a year. That's a little bit high salary-wise. And, you heard the rumors during the offseason, Jack, about the possibility of Pageau being included if the Islanders would have made a trade for Alex DeBrincat. Is it possible they trade Pageau? Yeah, but I think Lou Lamoriello would only do it reluctantly. And I think that, he values a player like Pageau very much. So I think Pageau still is an important cog in this team. And unless there is a great deal out there waiting, I don't think the Islanders are going to trade him at all. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and Saturday will be the 56th birthday of former Islanders forward Bill Berg, originally a third-round pick of the Islanders back in 1986, made his NHL debut with the Isles during the 88-89 season, where he played 7 games, got his first NHL goal, 3 points, stayed with the Islanders through the 92-93 season when he was traded midway through the year to the Toronto Maple Leafs, later played for the Leafs, the Rangers, and the Ottawa Senators before hanging up his skates after the 1998-99 season. For his career, Bill Berg really more of a defensive forward, 546 career NHL games, 55 goals, 67 assists, and 122 points, 488 penalty minutes. Berg adds 3 goals and 7 points in 61 playoff games. None of those playoff games, however, coming with the Islanders. We go back and look at one of his better games with the Isles, October 27th, 1990, at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Ron Hextall, the goalie for the visiting Philadelphia Flyers, while the Islanders had George Maniluk in goal, who didn't play a lot really for the Isles, but he was back there. And in this game, Bill Berg gets the Islanders on the board. He gets a goal, has 4 penalty minutes, and scores on his only shot. Now, Berg's goal came late in the first period. The Islanders were down in this game 2-0. And Berg's goal with 30 seconds left in the opening stanza tied the game at 2-2. And then the Islanders got a couple of more goals from Pat LaFontaine, who had a hat trick in this game, and a goal from Randy Wood. The Islanders get 5 unanswered goals and beat the Flyers at home by a score of 5-2. For Bill Berg, this was his first goal of the season, and it was a big one, which tied the game and helped shift the momentum for the New York Islanders. So Bill Berg is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, Monday on the show, we will have our key takeaways from the 2 games this weekend and prepare you for the next game after that. So next game, Tuesday, against the Colorado Avalanche, and that is an 8:00 Eastern time start. Should be a good game. The first game the Islanders are playing against a Western Conference playoff team. They are facing the Devils, who made the playoffs last year. And I think we're really going to learn a lot about this team based on how they perform in these 2 back-to-back games this weekend. We'll break it all down for you on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.